I have to confess, I'm an introvert. I don't like to talk to strangers, but I like to listen to people, to make you talk, and afterwards think about your stories. So let's use these 30 minutes that we have today to get to know each other. You will do all the talk and all the work, and now just relax a bit. Okay, so let me start. My name is Yanira, and I'm from Basel, where I studied human-computer interaction. Then I went to work for Google as a user experience researcher. And around 1.5 years ago, my boss, Robin, approached me and asked me to join Tamedia because he had this amazing idea to build a UX team, which is called Pucks now. And we like cats, so here's a cat picture. Okay, so yeah, as a UX researcher, I do lots of research. You got that right. And as the U in my title stands for user, I do research about users, so human beings. Unfortunately, not cats. But hey, here you have another cat picture. So the act of researching is about to measure and understand something. And there are two different ways how this measuring and understanding can be done. The first one is attitudinal versus the behavioral dimension. This is about the what we are trying to measure and understand. So here we try to listen to people, listen what they say, so their stated beliefs, self-reported information, again, what people say. Methods, for example, that we use to do that are surveys, or focus groups, or card sorts, and many more. On the other end of the dimension, we are trying to understand and measure behaviors. So this is what people do, how they interact, where they click, and what actions they take. Methods to investigate this can be, for example, A/B testings, or eye tracking. We also have an eye tracker now. So why is this differentiation important? And everyone who read the Pucks letter of this month know that what people say and what people do oftentimes is very, very different. But there are many more examples than just the one we had in our Pucks newsletter. For example, we see that suddenly we have a spike on a conversion rate or on a click rate, and we're almost inclined to take out the champagne and celebrate, yeah, great conversion, everything is awesome. But then if we afterwards talk to our users and ask them, hey, why do you like that feature so much? And then they just say something along the line as, yeah, I don't know what that button does. I clicked it over and over, nothing happens. This is just so useless. So maybe we put the champagne back into the fridge and keep on working. So once again, this dimension is about the what we are trying to measure and understand, and it's behaviors and attitudes. So here you have another cat picture. On the second dimension, that is about the how we are trying to measure and understand these behaviors and these attitudes. And here we use qualitative and quantitative methods. And again, both generate data about attitudes and behaviors. So again, it's just the how this data collection happens that is different. In qualitative studies, we generate data or about behaviors and attitudes that are based on observing our users directly. So that means we're sitting there together with them. So this was just exactly a week ago, where, for example, in field studies or usability studies, the researcher observes how the user uses technology or not uses to meet their needs and achieve their goals. And the researcher there in this moment has the ability to ask questions and probe on behavior. The analysis of this data is usually not mathematical, and the answers that we get out of this data is the why or how we can or should fix a problem. Whereas in quantitative studies, we gather this data about the behaviors and attitudes indirectly. That means through a measurement or an instrument, such as an analytics tool, or a survey tool. These insights then are derived usually from a mathematical analysis, since the instrument of this data collection helps us gather large amount of data that can be easily coded numerically. And then we can answer questions along the how much or how many answers. And having these numbers help us later on prioritize our resources, for example, to focus on issues with more or less impact. So once again, this dimension is about the how we are trying to measure and understand behaviors and attitudes using qualitative or quantitative methods. So if we try to combine these two dimensions, which we have here, we can see that on the qualitative end, we observe directly, we're there together with the user. So we gather attitudes and behaviors, and afterwards can answer questions to why or how we can fix these issues. So it's again here about what people say and about what people do. And on the quantitative end, we also learn about what people say and what they do, but just the way we do it is different. And also the answers that we get are different. It's about how much and how many. So most of you might wonder now, where on this spectrum lies the famous usability study? So actually, it's a mixture of self-reported and behavioral data. Heavy stuff, right? So you deserved another cat picture. You might ask yourself now, what exactly is the goal of this talk? So what you should remember after this is that we should use surveys to measure users' attitudes, and we should apply surveys in a considerate and deliberate way. Oh, the cat has a question. And yes, this is a cat. No, you're wrong. The user is always wrong. You know that. PM is always right. Marketing knows about user journeys, about personas, sorry. Engineers know about user journeys. PMs knows about user needs. And UXers know about business. So this is a cat, and the cat has a question. What are surveys? So surveys measure and categorize attitudes or collect self-reported data that can help us track or discover important issues to address. If we come back to our dimensions again, we can see where that surveys lie here. So we use quantitative tools, so the how is quantitative, and the what is attitudinal. So we get attitudinal data using quantitative measures. So let's take a horrible example. Some weirdos like lumberjack shirts, as in Holzfällerhemden. So we try to understand those minds, which is not an easy task. So having the impossible task in mind, we thought, let's run a survey, since anyway, we don't have a lot of budget, and we best need the results already by yesterday, which also rarely happens. So let's now look at a series of questions and see why they're so brilliant or not. So the first one is, do lumberjack shirts frustrate you? Yes or no? What do you think? OK, so let's go with no. How interested are you in lumberjack shirts? We have options. Very much, a lot, not so much, not at all, never. So wait, never, a lot, very much, not so sure. Which one should we take here? Let's go with the second, the lot or something like that. Just, yeah, they're nice. Weird. How difficult is it for you to find good-looking lumberjack shirts? Difficult, very difficult, a little difficult, not at all difficult. I mean, what would you say? Like a difficult? So the second one, or is it the first? OK, so the most, the biggest, OK. Yeah, this is getting annoying, right? How much do you like cats and lumberjack shirts? Everyone loves cats, that's out of question. So, yeah, how might we answer this question? A great deal, a lot, a moderate amount, a little, none at all. This is weird. Yeah. I mean, we love cat, let's just take a lot. The cat is getting angry. I hope you can see that. So, in which of the following shirts are you interested in? Follow them on social media. For example, get ads on Instagram, #hipster. Follow the weirdo, like cat pictures, and or buy them, even if not regularly yourself. Please mark all that apply. Ugh. Shirts that you don't buy or are interesting in for you can be left unanswered. Lumberjack shirts. Oh my gosh, this is weird. I'm interested and I follow it on social media. I buy them myself. I follow weirdos on Instagram. Okay, I have to admit, guilty of that. I follow at least one weirdo on Instagram. But yeah, our cat is really pissed. So next question, and hopefully this is over soon. Consider your geographic area within a range of 20 kilometers. Okay. Which of these shirt stores are closest in proximity to your residence? So wait, residence, I live in Wiedikon. Proximity, Basel is 100. This is difficult. Geographic area, 20 kilometers, cat store, company cat. Yeah, I don't know. Who can help me here? Let's just take something. Let's take the cat company. Oh, an easy one. How often do you use the internet? Like all the time, right? This is easy. Multiple times a day, daily or almost daily, multiple times a week, multiple times a month or less. Yeah, multiple times a day, right? Okay. So if you're really, really annoyed by now, I did a really good job in delivering you the worst survey possible. But keep in mind, even though some of these questions were now funny, there is only a small proportion of these questions that I had to invent myself for this talk today, and most of them I just really took over and exchanged like the topic with cats and lumberjack shirts, but these were really like survey questions that we delivered to our users, to a big scale of our users. So let's now see with some small tweaks and tricks how we can turn things around and make out of this monster a light and digestible survey. So here we had, do lumberjack shirts frustrate you, with the option of yes or no. So generally, you should avoid using questions where you just ask the participant to agree or disagree, because this might introduce some unwanted bias into your data. They might even be invalid or completely unreliable. So yes or no questions can be easily rephrased by just using phrases such as how often or how much or how likely. So always include a response scale into your questions. That will really make a big difference. There are basically two reasons why you should do that. First is that you get richer data, because it provides you with a direction and an intensity. So you know, how frustrating are they for me? Is it just a bit or in between? Or like you get a direction and an intensity. And also, you should avoid the acquiescence bias, which is a fancy word for the yes bias, which is the tendency to agree with all the questions and indicate a positive connotation to all the questions that you get. And if you want to avoid the acquiescence bias, you should just ask your users, how satisfied are they with an experience? So the cat is exhausted, still asleep, but hopefully alive. The next one we had was, how interested are you in lumberjack shirts? We had options rating from very much, a lot, to never. Does not seem to fit very well. So make sure that your response options are clear and understandable, and that the space between the options is always the same. Use your scale in a horizontal way instead of a vertical way, and label every point. So you do the work for the user. Don't let it for them to think about what this could mean by just providing them the two extremes, and then they have to figure it out, because they won't think about it. They will just pick a random answer and go with it. And also keep your order consistent. That means if you start with extremely positive, always on the right side, then you always have to go with extremely negative on the left side, and keep that consistently through your entire survey. How difficult is it for you to find good-looking lumberjack shirts? So here you might ask yourself, how many scale options should I provide? So make sure that your response options are balanced. That means that you have an equal number of positive and negative options that you deliver to your users. This will afterwards increase the chance that the results really reflect your participants' true beliefs. And how many options should you give them? Usually go for 5 or 7-point Likert scales, and then you're always on the safe side. So Likert scales. This sounds scary, but actually it's not. Likert is just the name of this dude who came up with these super smart scales. And it's not rocket science. You can just type into Google 5-point Likert scale interesting, or 5-point Likert scale annoying, 5-point Likert scale satisfaction. And Google will spit out all the labels, all the options already predefined, and you can just copy-paste that. So no work for you there. And then use midpoints. I think this is also a huge misconception that you should force your respondents to pick a side. However, again, this might also introduce some unwanted variance or bias into your data by just forcing them. How much do you like cats and lumberjack shirts? I mean, it's obvious that everyone loves cats, but what if you don't like lumberjack shirts so much? So always make sure that you just ask one question at a time. If your question or your answer contains words such as and or, this can be a red flag. So be on the lookout for them. And if you have that, you can just easily break it up into 2 questions. So always just ask about one concept at a time. Because what happens then? You don't know how to answer the question. Your brain starts to smoke, and this is usually an indication for cognitive overload. And you really want to avoid that, because again, this might introduce variance and bias into your data or made it even completely invalid. I'm not going to read this one again, because it's really long and annoying. So, yeah. Ask direct questions. Keep it short and simple. Communicate your intent. Let your users know what exactly are you asking them. Vague or poorly worded questions can confuse your respondents and make your data less useful. So be clear and precise in space and time. Here we rephrase that question into, how often have you bought a lumberjack shirt from the weirdo in the last month? So we are clear in space, from the weirdo, and in the last months, clear in time. So always give them a frame of reference about what exactly you're asking. And keep it short and simple. Long, drawn-out questions increase confusion and raise the risk of misinterpretation, and you don't want that. So keep your questions short and crisp. Otherwise, the cat will just walk away. So geographic area, 20 kilometers, proximity residence. Use easy language. Which of these shirt stores are closest to where you live? Ask exactly the same thing, but using words that everyone understands. So use your respondent's language. Keep it really, really simple. Don't assume prior knowledge or understanding, because no, users don't know what your USP is. And no, users don't know how you call your features. They don't know and they don't care. So leave no room for ambiguity in your surveys. Keep it simple. Use 9th or 11th grade reading level, and really make sure that you don't use specific jargon or confusing acronyms, and that will help a lot. So how often do you use the internet? Please raise your hands. Who does not use the internet on a daily basis? Yeah. Who does not own a smartphone? Nobody. So that means we're in the internet all the time, 24/7, right? So why should we even ask this question? And even worse, why should we ask this question in a survey that is only distributed in the internet, online? You can only fill it if you're at that moment online. So why ask that question? So please keep in mind, time is money, and you only ask what you need to know today. So surveys that are too long, too complex, or too confusing will just frustrate your respondents, and they will just go away. So limit your questions to topics that you can act upon within the next 6 months. If the answer is, oh, but that might be useful for a next project or a different one, drop the question, because you won't use it anyway. If the answer is, oh, but this is so interesting to know, that would be so nice, drop the question. Ask yourself, what am I looking for that is really, really actionable? So demonstrate your users that you respect the time and the effort that they spend answering your surveys. Use your surveys to show the users that you care about them and that you value their opinion. If you achieve to do so, you will increase engagement, trust, and brand loyalty. However, if you bother your users with too much annoying questions that they perceive as stupid, confusing, or unnecessary, they might perceive you as less credible and trustworthy, so don't harm your brand. Keep it short and simple. You will save time and money, and also avoid lots of frustration during your data analysis, believe me. So remember that just because the technology allows you to create surveys in an easy and cheap way, that does not mean that it is not important or that it should be of low quality. So we need to question ourselves for each item that we have, do we really need that one or not? And we struggle there like all the time. And I mean, don't get me started about demographics. I love to ask demographic data. It's so interesting, it's fascinating, but we really need to cut it down and be pragmatic when it comes to that. So if you struggle with that, take your survey for a test drive. Ask at least 5 people in your team or in a different team to be on the lookout for problems or issues. And then you can catch them and improve them before you distribute it to your users. And if you're in doubt, just let us know, because Pux is always here for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yanira. So if somebody wants to have a survey done for whoever they work for, how would they contact you or Pux?
I think, yeah, just let us know. We're on Slack and everywhere.
Great.
Just
Thanks.
reach out to us.
Let's make some more. Yeah.
Yes.
So how do you make sure, like in a survey, how do you make sure that someone knows you appreciate it? Are you talking about like incentives or what?
No, it's about the questions you ask and how you ask them. So if you ask a question respectfully, or if the respondents feel that you really put some thought into how you asked your questions and you did a survey deliberately, then he feels that you will appreciate it. And after, because then it's like twofolded. If you have a good survey using good language that is easy to respond, people will do it. So your data will be valuable. And then the probability that you will act upon these insights is bigger. And then, as soon as you act on these insights, the user sees that in the product. And then he knows, wow, I filled out that survey, and maybe it's 6 months later, but it doesn't matter. It improved, it changed. And then the user really feels incentivized through that way.
Thank you very much.